Hey everyone, Clint here from Oak and Iron Outdoors, and it is the end of February and I'm out doing some scouting, and I have a little public land piece. It's actually really not very big, but what caught my eye is that it's surrounded by some very good properties, and I'm here today just to check it out and see what it has to offer. And I've talked about this in the past, that a particular property has to have what I call a recipe to grow a big buck. There's so many public land properties, but what properties are the properties that you're looking for? And in this case here, this little property here, it's quite a walk back, and it is kind of nestled in between, we'll call it some big woods, all right, some forested area, but it's also got some ag on the outside too. So it's a really, really good mix. We're probably looking at an easily a 50-50 mix of forest to ag country. So anyways, enough of me talking, and this is my first time ever on this property, and you're just gonna come along with me. We're gonna check it out and see what we find, and I'll put my game plan together, strategy together, if this property says that we can do that. It might be a property too that's just garbage and we go on to the next property. But anyways, I thought I'd just have you folks follow along and let's see what this property is all about. All right, so I'm actually on the back side of the property right now, and if you look behind me here, right through here actually, one of the landowners actually has a little cornfield, a very small little cornfield, and from walking on the public side here, I could see that it was cleanly picked off. So that's kind of a good sign. We have that food source back there. And then the other good sign was just on the corner that I'm at right now, there's a doe and a fawn that got kicked up and they just ran off. So they're probably sitting, fairly close to this edge here. We're looking at maybe 60, 70 yards. And then later they're gonna hit this corn, whatever's left on it. I didn't see anything left, but I'm assuming that there's something left. And the other thing with this property too, we have a lot of oaks, a lot of white oak, and then pine plantation, actually. So there's a lot of, pines on this particular property. Now, it really wasn't that super hard to get back here. I didn't have to walk through a lot of water or really anything that was considered super, super tough. And that means other guys can get back here as well. So a lot of times when I take a look at these properties, the first thing I do is I try to diagnose the property, like time frame wise. And for me, the way it's looking right now, this would have to be a rut property. I don't see them bedding any big bucks. Technically, bedding doesn't mean they can't. But for the most part, this is a property that you're just going to have to catch them cruising on the corners. Hopefully you can get them to come in on this public land side and to be able to maybe get a shot at one. But anyways, this is, I just got to the back side, so there's a lot more to explore here. So let's just keep moving. All right, folks, so something I want to point out to you is I have a deep ravine behind me, and actually looks like a small pond back there, okay? And then it opens up behind me, and then it goes up and creates a valley up here. I know it's kind of hard to tell, but there's a valley actually right here that it creates, but that valley's fairly open. And with this essentially small little food plot or cornfield over here, I know that they're gonna be heading here. Now, the problem that I have right now is I am not very far from the essentially the private land, okay? And I'll zoom in on it here, but if you look behind my shoulder here, okay, this bottom right in front of the pond is actually nice and thick. And it's open here now in late February, so you can actually see through it pretty good. But if I had to guess, if whitetails had to get from one end to over here to, let's say, scent check does, over where this little corn here is, they could do it one of two ways. They could either take the private land, which may or may not have much for people, or they could take the public land behind me, that valley area behind me. But I'm not a fan of that valley because it's too open. And not only that, these whitetails, especially your big bucks, they can get used to where people are going to be. So I'm gonna walk around this valley a little bit and just see if there's a little bit more cover. And that's really what I'm looking for now, is to find security cover. I have plenty of tracks. There's actually a lot of deer tracks, and there's some fairly good sized tracks. I can't see any monsters, and the snow is a little crusty. But anyways, I'm gonna keep moving, and right now I'm looking for security cover to maybe stretch along from one end of the property to the other. All right, so I walk down just a little bit here, and I have that valley behind me, and actually just over my shoulder here, there is a lock-on tree stand, public land, Wisconsin. But anyways, thing though, if you look behind me though, the one thing that, that there's just not enough of, especially in this public piece, is security cover over here. Now there's very good security cover amongst those pines over there. And what I notice when you get these sparsy areas like this, these bucks kind of play dot to dot. And what I mean by that is they essentially will just keep staying within the pines, okay, as they go from one end of the property to the other, and not so much skirt the edge of it. Now, eventually they have to pop out on an edge somewhere. But from what I can see, we just have way too much open area here. And I'm not seeing anything that's really catching my eye. And I have not seen any buck sign yet. Doesn't mean it's not here, but just not seen the buck sign yet. But when it comes to these spots like this, especially with this pine, and this pine plantation is actually a little patchy. There are some open spots in it. But from my past experience, these big bucks do not skirt the edge and walk these edges down like you would think maybe on private property. They usually go right through the middle of them, and they just pop out at that last minute. And then to really guess where they pop out, sometimes you can pick it out, but sometimes it's a guessing game. They don't always pop out on those little points and stuff like you think they would, because they also know a little bit better. All right, let's keep walking. All right, so I technically just really took a half of the property and crossed it off. I'm now scouting the other half, and this other half has a creek bottom. There is a creek that goes through there. This is the flat bottom. I'm essentially standing currently on the side ridge, and then up above me, it's kind of some nasty stuff. There's some wind downfall, some wind damage. They create a lot of downfalls up top. So this is gonna be my last resort to try to hopefully find maybe something that would make this property worthwhile. And after looking at this entire property, I'm hoping to find one stand location, just one, that really pops out to me. And it's probably gonna be something that's not gonna pop out big time to, let's say, even the average guy. It's gonna have to be one of them subtle pop out deals, where you just catch a buck catching a corner from somewhere to somehow, and then put the whole thing together and look at it from a macro perspective and say, okay, I think a buck is going to try to go from this part of a property, I'm thinking of a private property, and trying to cut through this public property. But anyways, let's just keep walking. This has more security cover than the last area, but does it have that magical spot? Not sure yet, but and still no buck sign yet, and I'm walking this bottom, so we'll see. Plenty of deer, scat, and tracks, so there's definitely deer here, and I'm sure there's big bucks that do come through here, but it's not like definitive. So all right, let's keep going. All right, folks, so being public land, it is what it is. We got a little camera right there, so there's definitely people back here. Now, I'm gonna have to probably push it right to the edge somewhere and really try to find that little spot and make sense of that spot. That's the other thing I wanna mention too real quick. When I look for the spot to put a tree stand in, or we'll say a tree to sit in, for me it has to make sense to sit in that. Meaning I have to be able to look back from a macro level and say, okay, exactly why is a buck gonna go through here? And what is his intentions from A to B, all right? Now, granted, there's those cases where it's luck, that buck just came through there, maybe because he was kicked up or whatever. But in almost all of the whitetails that I've shot, mature bucks that I've killed, I always look back at it, and I always want to know why. And there's usually always a reason why they came through a spot. And, a lot of times for me, I have to have a really good reason why I think a buck would go through there. Not just because it looks good. There's a lot of spots that look good. And matter of fact, a lot of those spots that look good, when I was in my late teens and 20s, I see a lot of these young folks doing the same thing. And well, looking good because it looks cool or neat, or just kind of has those things that look like it's out of an Outdoor Life magazine. That's a little different. That's one thing. But as you get a little bit older, you start to see how deer use the property a little bit differently. And I can't explain it. I just think that comes from experience. And you older hunters, you know what I'm talking about. So, okay. All right, folks, I found my first buck rub. And, you know, it's kind of in a typical spot. I'm actually kind of coming off of we'll call it a little bit of a point. It's not very high, you know, and I got the rub right here. And, oh, that rub is only, you know, it's only maybe 8 inches off the ground. Where it starts, and probably up to maybe about a foot and a half. So it's not a very big buck. I wouldn't think it's a very big buck. So it does go to show you that they're going through here, and then it's kind of going up. You can see that little hump right there, that little knob. So, you know, they're just crossing right there, and then that creek is behind me. So that's a good sign. That's, you know, saw a little buck sign back here, but I'm not very far from that trail camera either. And, you know, once again, I hate to say it, but if you can't tell right now, I'm not super excited about anything really back here. Doesn't mean they can't be back here, but we just got to keep scouting and keep checking out. Well, here's kind of an interesting find. Let's see what we got here. Hard to tell if that's old gut material in there. Whoever shot from the direction of the arrow probably came from either one of those trees there, possibly up over here. And as you can tell, these deer must have been coming out of this little thick area here. All right, folks, I'm essentially at what I'm going to call my last spot. I walked the entire perimeter of this property. And right behind me here, I know it's kind of hard to tell, but there's some thick stuff way down there, and that's private property. Matter of fact, it's private property only about 30 yards behind me here. And way down in there, it's red brush, it's thick. It looks like it would be a great spot, but it's private property. And it is what it is. Now, behind me, it does open up just a little bit here, so I followed this little opening. It's not a field, it's just basically a grassy opening to the edge of the public land property. And so here's how I would hunt this. Now, I'm going to tell you straight out, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't see this as a super ideal property. I see a lot of deer scat everywhere. I mean, tons of it, a few small rubs, nothing that blows my mind away, okay? But as you can tell, I'm up on a hill, and deer can see a long ways here, okay? There's not really that much security cover. There's a little bit if you look directly behind me, okay, where they maybe come through. But, you know, I have some family members, nephews, that if I was looking to get them on a nice buck, what I think I would do is, let's say I get my buck early, I'd bring one of my nephews out here, and we would set up somewhere right here or somewhere close by here, maybe a little off the private property. I don't want to have them shoot on private property, but I set up a deer decoy, and, you know, a little grunting sequence. I can see these bucks possibly going through that river bottom area, and to be able to pull maybe a buck out of there for them to shoot. So that's what I'm thinking. Now, yeah, I might even hunt here as well. And I have a family member, or actually a couple of family members that don't live too far from here. So if I have a family member that's still looking to get on a deer yet, or a nice buck, and I got my deer tag earlier, I think this might be a place that I might take them. So, because I do have quite a few other good spots, and I was hoping something would blow me away here as far as something good, and it's nothing's doing that. Doesn't mean it can't be good. And like I said, I think if you use a deer decoy, maybe pull a buck up from the river bottom, that might be the best case scenario. So, well, folks, if you enjoyed this video, I know it wasn't super exciting, and not all scouting videos are. That's why we scout. We have to put boots on the ground, because not everything looks great from a map, but that's why we have to walk these properties. So if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, Clint from Oak and Iron Outdoors.